great to be here. I think this is the first time I've been able to attend a convention of the Veterans for Peaceful Life. I always wanted to, because as soon as I heard that there existed such an organization, immediately my heart leaped, because I thought, yeah, this is needed. So, put my watch down here, pretending that I care. Putting on my glasses to pretend that I can see. How many people here are World War II veterans? World War II veterans are the toughest. No, I mean, do you know what I mean? I mean they're the toughest people. I mean they're the toughest to talk to. Really? I mean, I don't mean the people sitting in this room, the other World War II veterans. I think everybody has had that experience, especially those of us who are World War II veterans, and when you talk to other, because that, as we know, was the good war. It's very hard for people to overcome that, you see. And so, I'm especially grateful when I run into, and I'm doing that more and more, run into World War II veterans who now know that war is futile, disaster. And I recently had the experience of being invited to the World War II memorial service in Washington, D.C. You remember, it was in the news for a while. War memorials are wonderful things. Great occasions, the people who come with their hats and stuff. And so they invited me, which surprised me. Don't they know? I said, well, what is the topic that I'm supposed to talk on? They said, war stories. I said, I'll come. But I'm not going to tell war stories, because I just want to talk about my feelings about war. And I said, okay, no problem. So I did. And I came and I talked in this tent to a bunch of people, and I said, the reason I'm here is to honor friends of mine who died in the war. Okay, I have two guys, my closest buddies in the Air Force, Joe Perry and Ed Plotkin. I mean, they died and they were killed. We trained together, and then we went to different parts of the world. I went to fly out of England, and Joe Perry went to fly out of Italy, and Ed Plotkin went to fly in the Pacific. And so when we separated, we lost touch sort of with one another. And they were both killed in the last weeks of the war. Very last weeks of the war. So I'm here to honor them. But I'm not here to honor war. And I'm not here to honor people in Washington who send young people to war. And I'm not here... And I'm not here to remember World War II as a glorious war which should make everybody just anxious to go and be part of another greatest generation. Because I think that World War II, whatever moral core there was in it, and that's a very complicated story, the degree to which World War II was a moral war. Most difficult question I've ever had to grapple with. But whatever was true of World War II, and whatever you can say about the morality of World War II, one thing is clear, and that is World War II has been used and abused and misused, and it's been made to stand in whatever goodness there was, or whatever morality there was in it. It's been made to stand for all the ugly wars that we have fought since then. And the glow of World War II has been cast over every miserable war that we have fought ever since the end of World War II. So I didn't want that war, to be used, in that way. And I feel that we as veterans, it's just a peculiar thing, because you don't want to make a big deal of being a veteran.
Oh, yeah?
But you want to make a little deal of being a veteran. By that I mean, after all, there are veterans and there are veterans. The fact that you're a veteran doesn't mean that you necessarily speak the truth. There are veterans who speak lies. Remember Bush? The elder, the smarter. Well, the slightly smarter. Yeah. There are all sorts of veterans. Yeah. And yet, yes, there's something to be a veteran and to have something special to say to people. And we are, I think, in a special position to talk about war in a way that has a little more weight to it than other people who speak about war. And I think we're in a position to talk in a sense, we're in a position to speak, as I did in Washington, for the dead, who are not here to speak for themselves, speak for the people we knew who died and the people we didn't know who died in wars. We're in a position to speak for all those who were injured in wars and who are not speaking for themselves. And we're here even to speak for all the hidden casualties of war. The people who come back and they're alive and they don't have any apparent injuries. They have their arms and their legs, but they're in some way their lives have been distorted by the war that they're in. And we're in a position to speak for those people, say something for them. Because the people in Washington don't care about them. All those people came back from Vietnam, and of course some of them came back in wheelchairs, and some of you are in wheelchairs, and some of them came back without arms and legs, and so on. And there are others who came back apparently whole, but not really whole. And I remember being startled when I read that statistic, which I'm sure most everybody knows, and which shocks you when you read it, that more veterans since the Vietnam War, more veterans have committed suicide than died in the war. You see, it's a shocking thought, you see. But remember in the Gulf War, and remember how our authorities bragged about how few casualties we had in the Gulf, a few hundred casualties and so on. But in the 10 years that followed the Gulf War, thousands of veterans of the Gulf War died, according to the Veterans Administration. Thousands were dead. These were young people. And 200,000 of the 600,000 Gulf War veterans, and this is according to VA figures, 200,000 applied for disability, and 150,000 of them were granted. These are all the casualties of war. And we're also in a position, I think, although this is something that isn't done, really, it certainly isn't done by the military high brass, and it isn't done by the White House high brass, to remind people not just of our casualties, but of the casualties on the other side, which we don't think of. We're not trained to think of, and which in fact, and many of you have had the same experience I did, and when I was flying bombing missions, I was not aware, I didn't think about the human beings who are down there on the receiving end of these bombs. Simply didn't think about that. And when we can understand, those of us who have that experience can understand how soldiers can commit atrocities. Ordinary soldiers can commit atrocities and not think about what they're doing. But we're away from that now. We can think about it, and we can talk about it. And it's our duty to talk about the people on the other side who are the victims of our wars. So, something special, that we need to do. And of course, we're in a position to talk about the reality of war. And by the reality of war, I mean away from the abstractions and away from the euphemisms and away from the promises and the war for democracy, the war for liberty, all those words, that are used, and to confront people with, this is what war is. This is what war is like. We're in a better position to expose the lies of the government. I remember, of all people, Kipling, the great imperialist, said, but he acknowledged some things, And at one point he wrote, I think, this little couplet: if any ask why we died, tell them because our fathers lied. Wow. Yeah. So for a moment I had a soft feeling for Kipling. But we're in a position to explain to people and to talk gently to young people and to everybody about the difference between fighting for your country and fighting for your government. The difference between fighting for people, for human beings, and fighting for Halliburton, fighting for the profiteers, fighting for the war makers. Big difference. We're in a position to talk about patriotism and how patriotism does not mean simply going along with what your government does, but patriotism means supporting the principles for which your government is supposed to stand. I mean, that's the whole idea. That's what the democratic philosophy is as expressed in the Declaration of Independence. Governments are artificial creations. Governments are not holy. Governments are set up, according to the Declaration of Independence, governments are set up by the people in order to bring about certain things: equality, equal right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And when governments become destructive of those ends, the language of the Declaration, then it is the right of the people to alter or abolish the government. I think we can also, in a position to talk about heroism, because there's all this. World War II, of course, is the greatest generation. And we've been absolutely submerged in World War II nostalgia and the landings on D-Day and the Band of Brothers and all of that, and somehow there's something about that, which is sort of very troubling to anybody, anybody who really thinks about what heroism is. I remember when I left the Air Force, I got this letter from General Marshall, personal letter addressed to 16 million guys and a few women who had been in the military. And a letter, thanked me, congratulated me for being part of this great effort to win the war, and how now it was going to be a great new world. After all, 50 million people died in the war. The last sacrifice. It has to be a great new world. Well, as we know, it has not been a great new world. We've not seen the end of war. We have not seen the end of fascism. We haven't seen the end of militarism. But it seems to me that what we are about, what we are trying to do, us veterans and non-veterans, all of us have gathered today and opposing, the present war, and we are trying finally to fulfill that promise that was made to us to create a world without war and with justice. Thank you.